Hello, everybody. So I'm hoping that we don't have the sound issues we had last time. Today we're just going to expand on last time, and we're going to do multiplication and division of integers. Last time we did subtraction and addition. If you're watching that, there were some serious sound issues. I think the biggest takeaway, though, I'm hoping we don't have the same sound issues this week too, but the biggest takeaway is what we learned from last week. I'll go over that in 1 second. All right. How's it going, everybody? Okay. I think just did some type of weird double beginning or something, but I'll go over last week's a little bit with you because of the sound issues. The main takeaway, I think, was just we're doing addition and subtraction. If you see something like this, excuse me. This, when you see, you need to switch that to plus, so this becomes 7 plus 3. To me, that was the biggest thing that you get from that lesson. A double negative is a positive. Otherwise, it was just showing you how subtraction and addition works on a number line. So you need to know if there's a negative symbol somewhere in the equation, if the absolute value of that number is greater than the absolute value of the other number, then the answer is always going to have a negative. Anyway, let's get back into let's start today's stuff. Okay, 1 second. My cat needs to get out. Okay, I think I've been on mute for a while. So basically what I was showing was the new ways to write multiplication. Elementary school, they teach you 3x2. Well, now that x could be a variable, so we're going to go 3 dot 2 equals, or you'll see it in parentheses. And then we were talking about how addition, when you add something together, the answer is the sum. When it's subtraction, the answer is the difference. Multiplication, it's a product. And then division, it's a quotient. So when you're looking for the answer for 4 divided by 3, you're looking for a quotient. So remember, multiplication is equivalent to adding. So when you see 3 times 4, what you're looking at, this is how I teach my daughter math. You're looking at how many groups of what. So I always tell her 3 groups of 4 equal what? And that equals 12. So just like adding, the product of two positive numbers, the answer will always be positive. So 3 times 4, the answer will be, 3 times 4. Oh, come on. I got to get a different program to write this stuff. It's so awkward. 3 times 4 equals 12. Yeah, that's a horrible 3. 3 times negative 4 equals negative 12. So whenever you multiply a positive and a negative, it comes out to negative. And then if you multiply 2 negatives, you're going to come back to a positive. One little sidebar here that's on what I'm reading is, remember, whenever you're multiplying by 0, the answer will always be 0. Because 0 groups of 3 equal what? Where 1 times 3 would be 1 group of 3 equals 3. I mean, I'm sure I could prove to you that is, I'm not going to show you any proofs of this kind of stuff. You just kind of have to take my word for it, I guess, because you'll get into that later. So remember, a positive times a positive is positive, positive times a negative is negative, and negative times negative is positive. The rules for division are the same because division can always be rewritten as multiplication. So if you have negative 10 over 2, let's get it off math pen, is the same as negative 10 times 1/2. And that's going to equal negative 5. And conversely, negative 10 over negative 2 is the same as negative 10 times negative 1/2. And that will equal 5. So even me would need a little brush up on something like this, because I know that I know that equals 5. 2 goes in that way, 5. I kind of forget how to do the math on this. Anyway, on something like this, what would it be? 10. Yeah, because that's the same as over 1. So you end up coming back to that. Anyway, just working stuff out in my head right there. I'm going to show you how that breaks down, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm sure it'll be covered later. Like I said, the name of this is I'm Teaching Myself Math. So some of this I'm going to be a little bit rusty on this beginning stuff. It's been a long time. So the rules for multiplication and division should not be confused with the fact that the sum of two negative numbers is negative. So let's have an example here of -3 plus -5. So we have -3. We're going to add to it -5. So we're going to get -8. B is asking us to -3 times -5. That is going to equal 15. So the result of adding two negative numbers is negative, but the result of multiplying two negative numbers is positive. Are they going to tell us why? I would like to have a proof on that one, actually. Okay, I think that's a long enough silence. I was trying to see if I could get a quick explanation for why the two positive equals a negative, because I know, even though we'll just take their word for it right now, it's nice to see why, a practical reason why. Okay, so we know that given any real numbers a, b, and c, we have the following properties of multiplication. If a equals 0, this is the zero factor property, then whatever you multiply it always equals 0. Or excuse me, a times 0 equals 0. We know if you multiply by 1, then multiply any number by 1, and it comes out to that number because you're basically asking one group of 2. We have the associative property. Those will all have the same answer. So it doesn't matter what order you multiply the numbers in, it'll come out the same. So if we have five times 0, that's going to equal 0. And 10 times 1 will equal 10. Because either way you look at this one, you're saying 5 groups of 0. This one you're saying 10 groups of 1. So 10. And even if you flip these numbers around, you would just be saying 1 group of 10 or 0 groups of 5. So the answers are the same. Okay. Why do some circles erase and some circles don't? And then just like we showed a minute ago, if you have something like this, so remember, just to get used to doing things in the proper order, do the parentheses first. So 3 times 7 is 21. Times 2 is 42. Now you could do this the same way. You could have, let's say, 2 times 7 times 3, and that would equal 7 times 2 is 14. 14 times 3. Remember, if you're not sure off the top of your head, you can use a calculator. You can work things out on the side that, you know, the way you learned in elementary school. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 42. Don't feel like you have to, just because this is quote-unquote basic math, that you have to, the circle thing again, quote-unquote basic math, that you have to do it in your head or anything. This is the real world. This is not school. Use a calculator if you want to. I don't care. Just be aware this is how you get there. The stuff you can work out, you know, just by changing the order it's written, blah, blah, blah. You can do that on paper. You can do that in your head. But I don't care if you go, what's 2 times 7? And punch that in your calculator. You come up with 14. Just for yourself, rewrite. You know, write it out as you're working on it. That will help you. Then you don't multiply 14 by 3. You know, you can do this on the side. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Whatever it takes you to get there. We have tools. Use them. I think if you're doing this, if you're watching this, you're going to want to know the steps. But, you know, cut corners if you want to cut corners. I don't care. I don't think anybody's going to turn into the next Albert Einstein or some type of rocket scientist from watching my videos. Okay, so that just shows, you know, you can do things in any order, and it multiplication wise, and it comes out the same. Now in division, it's not the same. So 10 divided by 5 does not equal 5 divided by 10. 10 divided by 5 equals 2. 5 divided by 10 equals 1/2. Those definitely are not the same thing. So here's a little longer one. If you have something like this, that's supposed to be 1. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. So instead of looking at this and going, oh man, what is this going to be? Hey, you know what 3 times negative 2 is? It's going to be negative 6. Negative 5 times negative 1, we know from the rule earlier. 2 negatives multiply into a positive. Now remember, don't make the mistake of putting plus right here. If you break it down though, there's no plus signs up here, no addition signs. This is parentheses denotes that this is all multiplication. So just put this in multiplication. You can put this in a parentheses too if it helps you remember. So we know 5 groups of 1 is going to be 5. So now we're back to a situation like this. A positive times a negative. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Okay, now let's do something a little tricky. Let's say we had 10 divided by negative 2 times negative 5. So the answer to this is going to be 25. So I have no problem showing the answer first, because the real problem is how do we get to 25? So let's see what happens here. Let's say we do the multiplication first. So we get 10 divided by negative 2 times negative 5. Well, we know 2 times 5 is 10. 2 negatives multiplied make a positive. So we have 10 divided by 10. And that, as we all know, equals 1. The answer we're looking for is 25. So I think a good reason to show you the answer first. Let's say this was a school setting. They would give you this problem without the answer and expect you to work it out. And you wouldn't know until you turned it in if your answer of 1 was correct or not. So I not give you the answer, and if you work it out and get it wrong, you know right away you did something wrong, and you can go back and fix that. So how about we divide first? So let's divide 10 divided by negative 2. That's the first step we're going to do. Oh, look, he's happy. So 10 divided by, now this is not a negative sign, this is a division sign. The dots are, I guess, a little bit small there. So that's going to be the same as 10 over negative 2. The answer to this is going to be negative 5. So now we have negative 5 times negative 5. And that, 5 times 5, equals 25. And since these are two negatives, it'll be positive. That's what we were looking for. So do this first. Now he's toothy. Then, when you find the answer, do this, the second step. So just be aware that the order you're doing things will affect the final result. Therefore, it's important to perform the operations of multiplication and division as they appear from left to right. So now we have negative 6 times 3 divided by negative 2 times negative 3. So the answer to this one is 6. So let's see. This is division again. Let me make these dots bigger. So we could get negative 18 here. And divided by, let's see, 6, because 2 times 3, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Can you already see we have a problem here, right? So this would be negative 3 as the answer. So not right. What did we do wrong? We multiplied this out before we divided. So we need to work left to right on this. So negative 6 times 3 is going to be negative 18. Now we want to divide 18 divided by negative 2. That is going to equal, oh, I forgot the negative symbol. That is going to equal 9. 2 negatives, so we get a positive. Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I wrote down 6 was going to be the answer for this. Now I'm starting to confuse myself. 27 is what we're looking for. Negative 27. I skipped ahead a little bit. My apologies. Okay, we're not perfect here. All right, we'll just put that one behind us. This is the one where the answer is 6. Whoops. So this one equals 6. So let's do the division first. Negative 5 divided by 5. That's going to be negative 1. Then we're going to times it by 2. We'll get negative 2. And we'll multiply by negative 3. And that will equal 6. Now, ideally, you want to do this a little cleaner. You want to do negative 1, write out the remainder of the problem again. And then do this part. So now you have negative 2. There you go. So if you're using a calculator, the multiplication symbol is not going to be a dot. It's going to be the asterisk. And then you're going to use the backslash or forward slash, whatever that is, for division. Some calculators will also have this button. So division usually is one of these two. Some calculators, I guess, will have X. But for the most part, these are the symbols you'll see on a calculator. These two are multiplication. These two are division. Okay, it looks like we're going through some sets. I don't think it's really necessary to go over this. I'll read ahead. If it turns out to be, then we'll come back. But it's just showing sets. We learned that at the beginning where you have this. This is a set of all integers that are evenly divisible by 2. So a set of even integers, and it's just dot, dot, dot. -6, -4, -2. Then we have 0, 2, 4, dot, dot, dot. That would be your set of all even integers. Odds will be the odds, which are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Then you can have prime numbers. So what we're getting into, the reason for that is because we're going to get into some factors here. So if you have the number 30, you can factor that down to 2 and 15. And then that 2 keeps going to 2. And then this can go to 3 to 5. You can factor all the way down to prime numbers. You can take any number and do that. So prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7. Let's see, 11 is next. 13, 17. So what prime numbers represent are numbers that can only be divided by themselves. So they're only factoring on any of these. So on 7, 1 times 7 is the only way you can multiply to get 7. So for instance, 6, you can have 6 times 1. You can have 2 times 3. Those all equal 6. 8, for example, you can have 8 times 1 and 4 times 2. 12 is a good one to show you. 12 can be 12 times 1. It can be 6 times 2. And it can be 3 times 4. So all of those equal 12. With prime numbers, they don't have that. 17, the prime, all you get is 1 times 17. 11, all you have is 1 times 11. There's no 3 times something, 4 times something that make 11. That's it. So they're prime. So prime numbers are only divisible by 1 and itself. And 2 is the only even prime number. The rest are odd. So you can take any number and break it all the way down into its smallest form, which is primes. So if you do 2 times 3 is 6 times 5 equals 30. That's how you can make sure that you factored it down right. So let's take 24. Obviously 2, it's an even number. So you would go 2, what's 2 times what equals 24? That's 12. So now we have 2 here. 4, we can go to 4 and 3. 3 is prime, that can't be broken down. 4, what's 4? 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 equals 24. So there you go, broken down into prime numbers. Now, if you're watching this and there's things you don't get, feel free to, go outside of this into yourself. tons of videos online, way better than mine too. So 7 we can have, factor this down, or 70, excuse me, 7 and 10. 7 is a prime number, so we won't go any lower on this side. 10 can be broken down to 2 and 5. And there you go, 7, 2, and 5. 7 times, let's go, 2 times 10 is, excuse me, 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times 7 is 70. So to help make factoring easier, you should know that if you have an even number, 70 is an even number. 2 will always be a, so if we would have done 70 and then gone 2, 2 is always a prime, and 2 goes into every even number. Then we would have had 35 on this side. Okay, what do you notice? 3 and 5 are primary numbers. Make sure you remember that you wrote 35 here, because this 2 times 3 times 5 is only 30. So that's how you can kind of know you're not done yet if you get lost or confused. So what goes into 35? 7 and 5. So there you go. Remember, with multiplication, they can be in any order. 2 times 7 times 5 is 70, just like 7 times 2 times 5 is. So if you saw a question that told you, like, what is the product of the first 3 positive even integers? We know numbers, even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8. Integers are numbers 1 or greater. So the first 3 positive even integers would be 2, 4, and 6. And the question is asking you find what is the product of the first 3 positive integers. So product is multiplication, so we would go 2 times 4 times 6. What does that equal? Let's see, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 6 is 48. Remember, if you're not sure, we're asking for 8 groups of 6. You can put, there's a group of 6. If you did that 8 times, you would have 48. So I like word problems because most people hate them, but I think word problems kind of tell you how to use it practically. And all the information you need there is given. I honestly truly believe that people just make word problems difficult because they're like, ooh, I have to read something. And I think the preconceived notion that math is hard, you're looking for confirmation bias. So listen to this. What is this asking? Joe is able to drive 342 miles. So let's write down the information. We have 342 miles. He can do that on 18 gallons of gasoline. So 18 gallons. Always put what the number represents too, because at the end, what we're going to look for in this problem is miles per gallon. Watch. So how many miles per gallon of gas is this? So what, oh, excuse me. What this is asking is, per gallon, how far do we get? If 18 gallons takes us 342 miles, what does 1 gallon take us? So we need to divide. How many times does 18 go into 342? So to write that out, division, boom. That line means division. 18 goes into 342 19 times. So you will get 19 miles per gallon. So let me repeat the question for you to see if it makes sense. Joe is able to drive 342 miles. That's this part right here. On 18 gallons of gas. So how many miles per, that's what the P stands for, gallon of gas is this? So we need to know how many times 18 goes into 342. And it goes in 19 times. So that gives us 19 miles per gallon. Easy peasy. So we'll also, at times, we want to use a single value that typifies a set of values. So one way to do this is what's called the arithmetic mean, or the average. So to calculate an average, we're going to divide the sum of the values in a set by the number of values in that set. So let's say you took a test and you scored 75 on one test. You scored an 86 on another test. And then on your third test, you scored 94. Maybe this is all the tests you're going to get graded on this semester. Your final grade is determined by these 3 tests. So what is your average score? So you took 3 tests. So you're going to want to add these all together and divide by the number of tests you took. So that's 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests. You're going to divide by 3. All these added together equal 255. You're going to divide by 3. 3 goes into 255. So if you need help wondering what this means, oh, even a 3/4 circle. Boom. You get used to drawing an arrow or something. If you want to go back to elementary days, that's 3, 2, 5, 5. And then you remember 3 goes into 2. It doesn't fit, so we go to the next number. 3 goes into 25 8 times. 24. Remainder 1. Bring down the next column. 15. 3 goes into 15 5. So the answer is 85. So your average score for the semester was 85. Oh. The circle thing is killing me. So a little refresher. If we have 12 divided by 6, the answer is 2, and we know that because it's divided by. If we take this, we can check our work by what we do to one side, we do to the other. So let's multiply 6 out of this. And we get 12 is equal to 2 times 6. That works. So because of that, 0 divided by 6 equals 0. Because we know that 6 times 0 equals 0. Now conversely, if you do 6 divided by 0, you're going to get undefined. And so if we do 12 divided by 0, we get the undefined. Why? Question mark. Because Flip it around. 0 times what, or question mark, equals 12? We have no idea. Undefined. Because 0 times anything is 0. So the zero factor property of multiplication states that any real number times 0 is 0. We conclude that there is no real number such that 0 times question mark, I shouldn't have erased that yet, equals 12. And thus the quotient is left undefined. In fact, try using 12 divided by 0 on your calculator. What does it say? So what I'm reading says they want you to write undefined on there. Guess what? UD is good enough for this, for what we're doing. So to summarize, given any real number where a does not equal 0, we find that 0 divided by a, that would equal 0 over a equals 0. Conversely, a divided by 0 would equal a over 0, and we don't know. Undefined. So that leaves us with 0 divided by 0. Is it undefined, or is it 0 times what equals 0? So guess what? This is indeterminate. We're uncertain. You can just say that it's undefined. 0 divided by 0. If you come up with the answer of 0 divided by 0, we all collapse into the singularity of the black hole and we're all dead. If the Y2K happens again, the Mayan calendar ends. Oh, it's chaos. So just leave 0 times 0 alone. So our key takeaways of all of what we just did right now is that a positive number multiplied by a negative number is negative. A negative number multiplied by a negative number is positive. So positive multiplied by positive equals positive. Positive multiplied by negative equals negative. And negative multiplied by negative equals positive. We know multiplication is commutative and division is not. So if you see a string of number, or oops, let's call that C, that's always going to equal the same as whatever order you put these in. Division, however, you need to do it in the correct order. So even integers, even numbers, are those that can be divided by 2 or multiples of 2. Odd numbers cannot be divided by 2. So let's take 6. You can divide that by 2. It goes in 3 times. Let's take 7. You cannot get a whole integer if you divide it by 2. Of course, you can divide it by 2. You get 3.5, but we want it to be to equal whole integers. So a prime number is an integer greater than 1 that is divisible only by 1 and itself. So 7 is a prime number because only 1 and 7 go into it. You can't divide 7 by 2, 3, or 4. The rest of the numbers are called composite numbers, and they can be broken down into primes. And you can break that number down until only primes are left for it. So you take, let's take 36. So remember, it can divide by 2. That would be 13. That is incorrect. 40, 20, 16. That would be 18. 18 is even, so you can have another 2. That would be a 9. And then 9 would be 3 and 3. To make sure you have it, these are all primes now. So 2 times 4 is 4, times 2 is 6. 12, excuse me. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 6. 36 times 3. Oh, man. Sorry. I should have wrote it out better. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. So it breaks down into prime numbers. If you want to get the average of a set of numbers, divide the sum of the values. So if you had 14, let's say you took 4 tests, or let's say you did the 100-yard dash 4 times, and these are took you 14 seconds in one, 16 seconds in the other. You did another one at 16 seconds, and then you did one at 15 seconds. This would come out to 30, 45, 61, and you raced 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I should probably make it a total that's even. But I didn't think this through very well. Let's make this one 15. So 60. So 4 goes into 60, so your average time was 15 seconds. And then we know 0 divided by any non-zero number is 0, and any number divided by 0 is unidentified. So if you have 0 divided by 5, the answer is 0. If you have 5 divided by 0, the answer is undefined. We're not going to do any of the extra questions, topic exercises at the end of this. I think this is kind of self-explanatory. It's getting kind of late for me. I think that's why I'm making so many mistakes right now too. And the more mistakes I make, the less it benefits anybody, even if I correct them. But this is still basic stuff. A lot of it I think you can just figure out on your own. I might start breezing through the next couple chapters a little quicker. I find that I am already making this more like I'm teaching people that are watching, when the whole point is I'm supposed to be teaching myself. And if you want to watch, then that's your benefit. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good night.